I generated $32 million for my company over 8 years, then got demoted so the boss could give my job to his cousin's unqualified husband. Now I own the competitor that's putting them out of business. So this happened about a year ago, and I'm finally ready to share the full story. TLDR at the bottom, but honestly, you need the full context to understand how insane this got. I worked for a mid-size commercial real estate firm called Metro Property Solutions in Denver for almost 8 years. Started right out of college as a junior associate and worked my way up to senior development manager. The owner, Oscar Grant, hired me personally back in 2016 when the company was doing maybe $15 million in annual deals. By 2023, we were pushing $85 million, and I was personally responsible for about $32 million of that through my client relationships and development projects. Here's where it gets interesting. Oscar has this cousin, Jessica Grant Stone, who's been floating around the company in various consultant roles for the past few years. Never really had a defined position, but somehow always had input on major decisions. She's married to this guy, William Stone, who works in tech and acts like he understands real estate because he flips houses as a hobby. About 2 years ago, Jessica started bringing William around the office more often. He'd show up to our quarterly meetings, sit in on client calls, and Oscar would introduce him as a strategic advisor. William had zero experience in commercial real estate, but he was full of ideas about disrupting the industry and leveraging technology solutions. You know the type. The first red flag was when William started questioning my approach to client relationships. I'm old school. I believe in face-to-face meetings, understanding each client's specific needs, building long-term partnerships. My retention rate was 94% over 7 years. But William kept pushing for more scalable solutions and automated client management systems. He wanted us to move away from personal relationships and toward what he called efficient transaction processing. Oscar started eating this up. William would send these long emails with buzzwords and industry jargon he'd clearly Googled. Optimizing client touchpoints, implementing data-driven acquisition strategies, maximizing ROI through streamlined processes. It was all bullshit, but it sounded impressive to someone who didn't understand the actual work. The breaking point came last March during our annual strategy meeting. I just closed 3 major deals totaling $8.2 million in commissions for the firm. The Riverside office complex, the Thornton Industrial Park, and a mixed-use development in Lodo. These were projects I'd been nurturing for over a year, relationships I'd built from scratch. William had prepared this presentation about restructuring our talent allocation. Basically, he wanted to create a new position, Director of Strategic Development. And guess who he thought should fill it? Hint, it wasn't me. He suggested that my role was too narrowly focused, and that the company needed someone with broader industry vision to maximize growth potential. He even had charts showing how my relationship-dependent approach was limiting scalability. I sat there listening to this guy, who'd never closed a deal in his life, explain why my methods were outdated. Oscar was nodding along like William was sharing the secrets of the universe. After the meeting, I pulled Oscar aside. You realize William has no experience in commercial real estate, right? He's never managed a development project or maintained client relationships at this scale. Oscar got defensive. William has a fresh perspective. Sometimes being too close to the work prevents us from seeing opportunities for improvement. What opportunities? Our revenue has grown 460% since I started. My clients trust me personally. That's not scalable, but it's profitable. That's exactly the problem, Oscar said. We can't have the entire company dependent on one person's relationships. We need systems that work regardless of personnel. I realized then that they'd already made their decision. This wasn't a discussion. It was a notification. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, Jessica called me into a meeting. William was there too, along with Oscar. They'd created this new organizational structure where William would be Director of Strategic Development, overseeing all major client relationships and development projects. I would report to him as Senior Associate, focusing on execution and implementation. Essentially, they wanted to demote me and put William in charge of the relationships and projects I'd spent years building. This isn't personal, Jessica explained. It's about positioning the company for the next phase of growth. William brings strategic thinking that complements your operational skills. I asked what would happen to my current projects and client relationships. William will be taking point on client management moving forward, Oscar said. You'll continue handling the day-to-day details, but all strategic decisions will go through him. They offered me a lateral transition with the same salary but reduced commission structure, since William would now be the primary relationship manager for my accounts. I sat there for a moment, processing what they'd just said. They wanted to keep me around to do the actual work while giving William credit and commissions for the relationships I'd built. I need to think about it, I said. Of course, Jessica smiled. Take your time. We value you and want to make this work for everyone. That night, I called my wife Renee and explained the situation. She was furious. They're stealing your work and giving it to Oscar's cousin's husband? Can they legally do that? Technically, yes. The client relationships belong to the company, not to me personally. But practically, it's going to be a disaster. I spent the weekend reviewing my employment contract and thinking about my options. The non-compete clause was standard, 1 year, Colorado-specific, and only applicable if I left to work directly with competitors. Monday morning, I walked into Jessica's office and resigned. I appreciate the opportunity, but I don't think the new structure aligns with my career goals. She seemed genuinely surprised. Are you sure? We're willing to negotiate the terms. I'm sure. Oscar tried calling me that afternoon, but I didn't answer. Jessica sent an email asking if we could discuss a retention package. I ignored it. My last day was April 15th, 2024. I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to the people I'd worked with for 8 years, and walked out. Here's what they didn't know. I'd been documenting everything for months. Every email where William overstepped his expertise, every meeting where Jessica pushed for changes that made no operational sense, every conversation where Oscar prioritized family politics over business logic. I had a detailed record of my client interactions, project timelines, and revenue generation going back to 2016. More importantly, I had personal relationships with most of my clients that extended beyond just business. These weren't just corporate contacts. They were people I'd worked with for years, who trusted my judgment and valued my approach. I took 2 weeks off, then started interviewing with other firms. Within a month, I had 3 offers. The best came from Pinnacle Commercial Real Estate, a smaller but growing company with a reputation for prioritizing client relationships over corporate politics. The owner, Linda Watson, made it clear, "We hire people, not positions. If you can bring value, we'll give you the resources and autonomy to succeed." I started at Pinnacle on June 1st as Senior Development Director with a base salary 20% higher than what I was making at Metro, plus a much better commission structure and equity participation after 2 years. Here's where the story gets interesting. About 3 weeks into my new job, I got a call from Robert Kim, the CEO of Grandview Properties. He'd been one of my biggest clients at Metro, responsible for about $6 million in annual business. "Hey, I heard you left Metro. Where'd you land?" I told him about Pinnacle. "Good for you. Listen, we're not happy with the transition. William scheduled a meeting to discuss our upcoming projects, but he doesn't understand our development timeline or market positioning. He's pushing solutions that don't make sense for our portfolio." "What kind of solutions?" "Generic stuff. Cookie-cutter approaches that might work for some clients but don't fit our investment strategy. He's treating us like we're just another transaction instead of a long-term partnership." I didn't say anything negative about Metro or William. Just listened. "Would you be interested in discussing our fall development projects? We're looking at 3 properties in Aurora and Lakewood, probably $12 million total investment." "I'd be happy to talk," I said. By the end of July, Grandview had terminated their contract with Metro and signed with Pinnacle. The transition was smooth because I already understood their needs, their timeline, and their investment criteria. Similar conversations happened with 4 other clients over the next 2 months. Not because I was actively recruiting them, but because they were dissatisfied with the new approach at Metro and reached out to me directly. Sterling Development Group left Metro after Williams suggested they optimize their acquisition strategy by focusing on smaller, faster turnaround properties instead of the large-scale developments that actually matched their business model. Nexus Capital Partners left after William tried to convince them to use an automated bidding system instead of the personalized market analysis they'd been receiving. Mountain Vista Commercial left after William rescheduled their quarterly strategy meeting 3 times, then showed up unprepared and spent 30 minutes explaining blockchain applications in real estate. By September, Pinnacle had signed $18 million in new business, mostly from clients who'd followed me from Metro. Not because I convinced them to leave, but because Williams' strategic approach was alienating people who valued relationship-based service. Linda Watson pulled me aside in October. I don't know what was happening at your previous firm, but their approach to client management seems to be driving business directly to us. I'd been getting updates from former colleagues at Metro. The picture wasn't pretty. William's streamlined processes had resulted in missed deadlines on 3 major projects. His data-driven approach had led to bid proposals that were either wildly overpriced or completely misaligned with client needs. His efficient communication systems meant clients were getting generic email updates instead of personalized service. Oscar was scrambling to manage the fallout, but the damage was spreading. Word travels fast in Denver's commercial real estate community, and Metro's reputation was taking a hit. In November, I got a text from my former colleague Jennifer Walsh, who'd been the office manager at Metro for 6 years. Just wanted to let you know, they laid off 4 people yesterday. Jessica is blaming it on market conditions, but everyone knows it's because revenue is down 40% since you left. Sorry to hear that, I replied. How's William handling things? He's not. Oscar is doing most of his work now, but he doesn't have your client knowledge or project experience. It's chaos. A few weeks later, Jennifer texted again. William stepped down from his director position. They're saying he wants to focus on his tech career, but word is Oscar forced him out. Too little, too late though. By December, Metro had lost 7 major clients representing about $28 million in annual business. Some had come to Pinnacle, others had gone to different firms, but the pattern was clear. Clients were leaving because the service quality had deteriorated dramatically. Meanwhile, Pinnacle was having its best year ever. We'd grown by 65% since I joined, and I was personally responsible for bringing in $31 million in new business. Linda offered me a partnership track for 2024, with equity participation starting immediately. The final update came in February of this year. Jennifer reached out one more time. Metro is filing for Chapter 11. Oscar is trying to sell the client list and remaining contracts, but there's not much left worth buying. Jessica is already working somewhere else. Thought you should know. I felt bad for the people who lost their jobs, especially the ones who had nothing to do with the management decisions that created this mess. But I couldn't pretend to be surprised. Here's what I learned from this experience. Family connections and personal relationships can override business logic, but only temporarily. Eventually, results matter more than politics. Clients don't care about your organizational charts or strategic frameworks. They care about getting good service from people they trust. When someone with no experience starts explaining why your proven methods are wrong, that's not innovation, it's arrogance. Companies that prioritize loyalty to family over competence rarely survive long-term. The best revenge isn't planning elaborate schemes or burning bridges. It's succeeding so obviously that the contrast becomes undeniable. A few months ago, I ran into Oscar at a coffee shop in Cherry Creek. He looked tired, older than when I'd last seen him. "Hey," he said, clearly uncomfortable. "How are you doing?" "Good," I said. "Really good. I heard about Pinnacle. Congratulations on the growth." "Thanks." He paused, like he wanted to say something else, but couldn't figure out how to start. "Look," he finally said, "I made some mistakes with the restructuring. William wasn't ready for that level of responsibility, and I should have recognized that sooner." I nodded but didn't say anything. "I know you probably don't want to hear this, but if you're ever interested in discussing opportunities." "I appreciate that," I said, "but I'm happy where I am." He nodded, understanding that the conversation was over. As I walked back to my car, I thought about how different things might have been if Oscar had valued competence over family loyalty. But then I realized I was exactly where I needed to be. Yesterday, Linda officially announced my promotion to managing partner. I now own 15% of Pinnacle, with the opportunity to increase that to 25% over the next 3 years. My base salary is double what I was making at Metro, and my commission structure means I'm directly benefiting from the company's growth. More importantly, I'm working with people who understand that business success comes from competence, not connections. My clients get the service they deserve, my colleagues are evaluated based on their contributions, and decisions are made for business reasons rather than family politics. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting fired by people who don't understand your value. It forces you to find people who do. TLDR, got demoted so my boss could give my job to his cousin's unqualified husband. Quit instead, joined a competitor, and watched my former company collapse as clients followed me to a place that actually cares about competence over nepotism. Now I'm a partner at a growing firm making twice what I used to earn. Update 1. Posted 6 months ago. A lot of people have been asking for updates, so here's what's happened since my original post. Metro Property Solutions officially closed in June. The bankruptcy proceedings took longer than expected, but there weren't many assets left to distribute. Oscar tried to restart under a different name, but his reputation in Denver was shot. Last I heard, he moved to Phoenix to work for someone else's firm. Jessica landed a marketing role at a tech startup. From what I can tell on LinkedIn, she's doing well enough, but she's not in real estate anymore. William went back to tech full-time. He's working for a software company now, probably making more money than he ever would have in real estate. Honestly, that's where he belonged all along. The weirdest part is that 3 of my former Metro colleagues have now joined Pinnacle. Linda created a new team structure specifically to accommodate people with Metro experience, and we've been able to rebuild some of the institutional knowledge that was lost when the company collapsed. Jennifer Walsh is now our office operations manager. She's incredible at her job, and she's told me that working at Pinnacle is like remembering what a functional workplace feels like. Tom Stone, no relation to William, different Stone, was Metro's junior developer. He's now a senior associate with us, and he's thriving with proper mentorship and realistic expectations. Amy Grant, also no relation to Oscar, different Grant, was an analyst at Metro. She's now our head of market research, and she's implemented data systems that actually make sense for our business model. We're not just growing by poaching talent from our former competitor. We're growing because we're good at what we do, and word spreads in this industry. This year, Pinnacle is on track to hit $95 million in deals. I'm personally responsible for about $41 million of that, which means I'm already exceeding what I was producing at Metro, even with their larger platform and established client base. The partnership is everything Linda promised it would be. I have equity, decision-making authority, and the resources to pursue the projects that make the most sense. When I suggest a strategic direction, people listen because they respect my track record, not because of who I'm related to. I've also started mentoring younger employees, which is something I never had time for at Metro. There's satisfaction in helping people develop their skills and advance their careers based on merit rather than connections. The personal growth has been just as important as the professional success. I'm less stressed, more confident, and I have a much better work-life balance. Renee says I'm a completely different person than I was during those final months at Metro. One interesting development: I've been approached by 2 other firms about potential partnerships or executive positions. The success at Pinnacle has raised my profile in the Denver market, and apparently, people have noticed the contrast between how Metro handled talent versus how we do it. I'm not looking to leave Pinnacle. I'm building something here that I partially own and fully believe in. But it's nice to know that the market recognizes the value of competence-based leadership. Someone in the comments asked if I ever felt bad about Metro's employees losing their jobs. The honest answer is yes. I did feel bad for people like Jennifer and Tom who were good at their work but suffered because of management decisions they had no control over. But I don't feel responsible for those decisions. Oscar chose to prioritize family politics over business competence. Jessica chose to support her husband's involvement despite his obvious lack of qualifications. William chose to accept responsibilities he wasn't prepared for. The consequences of those choices were predictable, and many people warned them what would happen. They didn't listen. My job was to do good work and maintain client relationships. When they made it impossible for me to do that effectively, I left. When clients followed me because they valued the service I provided, that wasn't revenge, it was market dynamics. Companies that treat employees as interchangeable assets shouldn't be surprised when those employees prove them wrong. Update 2. Posted 3 months ago. I wasn't planning to post another update, but something happened last week that I think you'll find interesting. Linda Watson decided to retire. She's 67, has been in commercial real estate for over 30 years, and wants to spend more time with her grandkids. It wasn't a surprise. We'd been discussing succession planning for the past year. What was a surprise is that the other partners voted unanimously to offer me the position of managing director. Not just a promotion, but control of day-to-day operations for the entire firm. We're now called Pinnacle Watson Real Estate, keeping Linda's name for continuity, and I'm running a company that's doing $120 million in annual business with 23 employees and offices in Denver and Colorado Springs. Linda is staying on as chairman emeritus, providing strategic guidance and maintaining relationships with a few longtime clients, but the operational decisions are mine. My equity stake increased to 35%, and I have the option to buy additional shares as the company grows. By 2027, I could own up to 60% of the firm. The first major decision I made as managing director was implementing a profit-sharing program for all employees. Everyone from analysts to senior directors gets a percentage of annual profits based on their contribution and tenure. Why? Because I remember what it felt like to build value for a company that didn't recognize or reward that contribution appropriately. I never want our employees to experience what I went through at Metro. The second decision was establishing clear advancement criteria based on performance metrics rather than relationships or politics. We now have a written policy stating that promotions and compensation are determined by results, period. Jennifer Walsh is now our Director of Operations with equity participation. Tom Stone just made Senior Development Manager. Amy Grant is our VP of Market Analysis. These people are succeeding because they're good at their jobs, not because they're related to someone. We've also hired 6 new employees in the past year, all of them based on their skills and potential rather than who they know. Here's the really satisfying part. Our reputation in the Denver market has completely shifted. 2 years ago, Pinnacle was seen as a solid but unremarkable firm. Now we're considered one of the top 3 commercial real estate companies in the metro area. We've won 2 industry awards this year, Commercial Real Estate Firm of the Year from the Denver Business Journal, and Best Workplace Culture from Colorado Business Magazine. The growth has attracted attention from national firms interested in partnerships or acquisitions, but we're not ready for that conversation yet. We're focused on building something sustainable rather than chasing rapid expansion. Last month, I spoke at the Rocky Mountain Commercial Real Estate Conference. The panel was about building client loyalty in a competitive market, and I shared some of the lessons learned from my experience at Metro and Pinnacle. The response was overwhelming. I had dozens of people approach me afterward, some asking for advice, others inquiring about job opportunities, and several potential clients interested in our services. One conversation stood out. A young woman named Rachel Weber introduced herself as a recent MBA graduate looking for her first position in commercial real estate. "I heard about what happened with your previous firm," she said. "The way you handled it professionally and rebuilt successfully is exactly the kind of leadership I want to learn from." She's now our newest junior associate, and she's already showing tremendous potential. I've been thinking a lot about leadership lately, and how it differs from management. Oscar was a manager. He could coordinate resources and implement systems, but he couldn't inspire people or make tough decisions when family pressures conflicted with business needs. Real leadership means creating an environment where competent people can succeed, even if that sometimes means making uncomfortable choices about personal relationships. It also means understanding that your success as a leader is measured by the success of your team, not by your ability to maintain control or avoid conflict. A few people have asked if I miss anything about Metro. The honest answer is no. I miss working with some of the people who were there, but most of them have either joined us at Pinnacle or found good positions elsewhere. I don't miss the politics, the uncertainty, or the feeling that my contributions weren't valued. I definitely don't miss wondering if I'd have a job tomorrow based on someone's family dynamics rather than my work performance. What I've gained is much more valuable than what I lost. I have ownership, autonomy, and the satisfaction of building something that rewards merit rather than connections. Renee says I'm happier now than I've been in years. My stress levels are down, my income is up, and I have equity in something I believe in long term. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you professionally ends up being the best thing that could have happened. Getting forced out of Metro taught me what I really valued in work and gave me the motivation to find it somewhere else. If you're dealing with nepotism, favoritism, or political BS at your current job, my advice is this: document everything, maintain your professional relationships, and start looking for opportunities where your skills are valued over your connections. You can't control other people's decisions, but you can control how you respond to them. And sometimes the best response is simply succeeding somewhere else. Final update, posted today. It's been a year since my last update, and I thought it was time to wrap up this story with what's happened since. Pinnacle Watson Real Estate just completed our most successful year ever. $147 million in deals closed, 31 employees, and we're opening a third office in Fort Collins this spring. My personal book of business hit $52 million this year, which means I'm generating more revenue as an individual than Metro was doing as an entire company when I left. The profit-sharing program distributed $890,000 to employees this year. Jennifer Walsh received a $47,000 bonus on top of her salary. Tom Stone got $32,000. Amy Grant got $41,000. These aren't just numbers. They're people who are buying houses, starting families, and building careers because they work somewhere that values their contributions. We've been approached by 3 national firms about acquisition offers. The most recent offer was for $23 million, which would give me personally about $8 million after taxes. I turned it down. Not because the money wasn't attractive, but because what we've built here is more valuable than a one-time payout. We have something unique, a company culture that prioritizes competence and rewards performance consistently. That's rare in any industry, and it's especially rare in commercial real estate where relationships and politics often matter more than results. Linda Watson told me something when I first joined Pinnacle that I didn't fully appreciate at the time. The best companies aren't built by hiring the smartest people. They're built by creating environments where smart people want to stay and grow. I understand that now in a way I didn't when I was focused on individual performance and client relationships. The personal satisfaction of running a company ethically is something I never expected to value as much as I do. When employees succeed here, it's because they earned it. When clients choose us, it's because we provide better service. When we grow, it's because we're good at what we do. That might sound naive or idealistic, but it's also profitable. Companies that operate on merit rather than politics tend to outperform their competitors over time because they make better decisions and retain better talent. A few months ago, I was invited to speak at a business leadership conference in Chicago. The topic was overcoming workplace politics and building merit-based organizations. I told the story of Metro and Pinnacle, focusing on the lessons learned about the difference between short-term family loyalty and long-term business success. After my presentation, a man approached me who looked familiar. It took me a moment to realize it was William Stone. "I heard your presentation," he said. "I wanted to apologize for how things went down at Metro. I was in over my head and too proud to admit it." I was surprised by the directness of the apology. "I appreciate that," I said. "How are things going for you now?" "Good. Really good, actually. I'm a product manager at a fintech startup, which is much better suited to my skills than real estate ever was. I learned a lot from that failure." We talked for about 10 minutes. William seemed genuinely reflective about the experience and acknowledged that he'd accepted responsibilities he wasn't qualified for because of family pressure and personal ambition. "Oscar pushed me into that role because Jessica convinced him I could bring fresh thinking to the company," William explained. "But fresh thinking doesn't matter if you don't understand the fundamentals of the business. I should have recognized that sooner." It was a mature conversation, and I respected his willingness to acknowledge his mistakes. "For what it's worth," William said as we were wrapping up, "watching what you built at Pinnacle after leaving Metro taught me more about business leadership than anything I learned in business school. You handled that situation with more professionalism than it deserved." I thanked him and meant it. Personal growth is valuable regardless of where it comes from. The broader lesson from this entire experience is that workplace politics and nepotism are ultimately self-defeating strategies. They might provide short-term advantages for the people involved, but they create long-term instability for the organization. Companies that prioritize relationships over performance tend to decline gradually, then suddenly. Metro wasn't killed by a single bad decision. It was weakened by months of prioritizing the wrong things until it could no longer compete effectively. Pinnacle succeeded not because we were necessarily smarter or more talented than our competitors, but because we were consistent about rewarding competence and making decisions based on business logic rather than personal relationships. That's not a revolutionary concept, but it's surprisingly uncommon in practice. My advice to anyone dealing with similar workplace dynamics is this. First, document everything and maintain your professional relationships outside the company. You never know when you'll need references or recommendations. Second, focus on building skills and producing results that are valuable regardless of where you work. Company politics change, but competence travels with you. Third, don't take workplace unfairness personally, even when it feels personal. Most of the time, these decisions are about the insecurities and limitations of the people making them, not about your actual performance. Fourth, be patient. Merit-based success takes longer than political maneuvering, but it's also more sustainable and satisfying. Finally, when you have the opportunity to create or influence company culture, prioritize systems that reward performance over connections. The people who succeed in that environment will be the ones who help your organization succeed long-term. Today marks exactly 2 years since I walked out of Metro Property Solutions. In that time, I've gone from senior development manager to managing director and partial owner of a growing company. More importantly, I've learned that the best response to workplace injustice isn't anger or revenge. It's building something better and proving through results that competence matters more than connections. Thanks to everyone who followed this story and offered support and advice along the way. Your responses helped me process what was happening and reminded me that most people recognize and value fairness, even when their workplaces don't always reflect those values. Success is the best revenge, but building an organization that treats people fairly is even better than success.